In the dead of night, a single piece of code, a digital ghost, silently slips across borders and into a secure facility. It doesn't steal data. It doesn't demand a ransom. It just waits. And then, with surgical precision, it starts to destroy things in the real world. This isn't science fiction. This was Stuxnet, a cyber weapon that set back Iran's nuclear program without a single bomb ever being dropped. This is what modern conflict looks like. Beyond the headlines of conventional warfare lie the shadow wars, secret battles fought with spies, hackers, proxy armies, and sophisticated disinformation campaigns. These are conflicts waged just below the threshold of open war, designed to topple governments, shift alliances, and redraw the map, all while maintaining plausible deniability. They are the unseen engine of geopolitics, where a whispered secret or a line of code can be more powerful than a battalion of soldiers. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on this hidden world to examine the covert operations that have defined our past and are actively shaping our future. To really get the massive impact of shadow wars, we have to go back to 1953, to a nation caught between superpowers, Iran. The country was led by its democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, a hugely popular nationalist. His big mistake, in the eyes of the West, was nationalizing Iran's massive oil industry, which had been controlled for decades by the British-owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, what we know today as BP. For Britain, this was a threat to its post-imperial influence and its economy. For the United States, deep in the Cold War, Mossadegh's neutral stance looked like a perfect opening for Soviet influence. A public military intervention was off the table, so the CIA and MI6 turned to the shadows, launching a covert operation codenamed Operation Ajax. It was a masterclass in subversion. A CIA operative named Kermit Roosevelt Jr., yes, Teddy Roosevelt's grandson, arrived in Tehran with a briefcase full of cash and a simple mission: regime change. The operation wasn't fought with armies, but with information. The CIA funded a huge propaganda campaign, planting fake news in papers that painted Mossadegh as corrupt, incompetent, and a secret communist. They bribed politicians, military officers, and clerics to turn on him. They hired mobs to stage violent protests, creating an atmosphere of total chaos. The plan almost failed, but in August 1953, after days of orchestrated turmoil, the military moved in. Mossadegh was arrested, and the pro-Western monarch, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was installed as the absolute ruler of Iran. In the short term, Operation Ajax looked like a huge success. Western oil companies got their access to Iranian oil back, and the Shah became a loyal U.S. ally for over 2 decades, a key piece on the Cold War chessboard. But the long-term consequences were a catastrophe. The coup destroyed Iran's young democracy and installed a brutal, repressive regime. This planted a deep-seated resentment against the West that festered for decades, until it finally exploded in the 1979 Islamic Revolution. That revolution brought Ayatollah Khomeini to power and created the hostile U.S.-Iran relationship that we still see today. Operation Ajax is a stark lesson. A covert win can plant the seeds of a strategic failure that lasts for generations. If Operation Ajax was about tearing a government down, the CIA's next great shadow war was about building an insurgency up. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan to prop up a friendly communist government, a move President Jimmy Carter saw as a grave threat. Direct war with a nuclear superpower? Unthinkable. The solution was Operation Cyclone, the longest and most expensive covert action in CIA history. From 1979 to 1989, the U.S., with a lot of help from Pakistan's intelligence service, funneled more than $3 billion in weapons and cash to the Afghan resistance fighters, the Mujahideen. This was a proxy war on an epic scale. The CIA supplied everything from rifles to sophisticated anti-aircraft weapons, most famously the FIM-92 Stinger missile. These shoulder-fired rockets were a complete game-changer, allowing guerrilla fighters to shoot down the feared Soviet Hind helicopters and turn the tide of the war. The strategy was simple: make the Soviet Union bleed, make the occupation so costly in blood and treasure that Moscow would have to retreat. And it worked. The war became the USSR's own Vietnam, a brutal 10-year quagmire that drained its economy and broke its military's morale. In 1989, the last Soviet troops withdrew in defeat, a humiliation that helped speed up the collapse of the Soviet Union itself. Just a few years later, Operation Cyclone was hailed as a strategic masterpiece. But just like in Iran, this victory came with a terrible, unforeseen cost, a phenomenon the intelligence world calls blowback. The US hadn't backed a single unified movement. It had funded a fractured collection of warlords and Islamist factions. When the Soviets left, these groups turned their guns on each other, plunging Afghanistan into a devastating civil war. The chaos created a power vacuum that was filled by the most extreme elements, giving rise to the Taliban, which took over in 1996. And among the thousands of foreign fighters who had flocked to Afghanistan for the jihad was a wealthy Saudi named Osama bin Laden. The war gave him a training ground, a network, and a radical ideology. The weapons and skills fueled by Operation Cyclone would eventually be turned against the United States, culminating in the attacks of September 11th, 2001. The triumphant bear trap had also created a viper's nest. The core ideas of a shadow war, plausible deniability, and getting a big impact from a small action haven't changed. But the tools sure have. Around 2010, the world's first true digital weapon was unleashed. Its name was Stuxnet. Believed to be a joint US-Israeli project called Operation Olympic Games, this incredibly sophisticated malware was built for one reason: to physically sabotage Iran's nuclear program. Stuxnet was a work of digital genius. It spread through USB drives to sneak into the high-security, air-gapped network of Iran's Natanz uranium enrichment facility. Once inside, it didn't just steal information. It subtly manipulated the systems controlling the centrifuges, causing them to spin out of control and tear themselves apart, all while feeding the operators normal-looking data. It physically destroyed nearly 1,000 centrifuges, setting back Iran's nuclear efforts significantly without a single shot fired. Stuxnet proved that code could be a precision-guided weapon, blurring the line between the digital and physical worlds and kicking off the era of state-sponsored cyber warfare. Today, these digital tools are part of a bigger strategy called hybrid warfare, a favorite of Russia. This approach blends conventional military threats with covert actions, cyber attacks, disinformation, and political meddling to destabilize enemies without triggering a full-scale war like NATO's Article 5. Since its invasion of Ukraine, Russia has dramatically ramped up its shadow war against the West. This campaign includes everything from GPS jamming of civilian airliners and using a shadow fleet of ships to cut undersea data cables, to orchestrating arson at factories that produce aid for Ukraine. These attacks are cheap, hard to trace, and designed to create a constant sense of vulnerability across Europe. The goal is to crack NATO's unity from the inside, weaken democracies, and scare countries away from supporting Ukraine by making them feel like they're already under attack. At the same time, actors like China are running their own global influence operations, targeting everything from local elections to business networks to reshape the world in their favor, often working with Russia. This is the new face of great power competition, a constant, simmering conflict fought not on traditional battlefields, but in our information streams, political systems, and critical infrastructure. The world of shadow wars is murky, complex, and changing faster than ever. Understanding these hidden conflicts is essential to grasping the forces that are truly shaping our world. If you found this valuable, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the unseen side of geopolitics. From the backroom deals of Operation Ajax to the digital ghosts of Stuxnet and Russia's modern hybrid war, covert operations have been a powerful and dangerous tool of statecraft. They offer leaders a way to project power and counter threats without the massive costs and risks of an open war. The success of Operation Cyclone in pushing the Soviets out of Afghanistan shows just how effective they can be. But the blowback is often severe and completely unpredictable. The very actions meant to create an advantage can instead unleash decades of instability, fuel extremism, and create new, more dangerous enemies, as the legacies of Iran and Afghanistan painfully show. Today, the shadow war has only intensified. The battlefield has expanded to cyberspace, where anyone from a state-sponsored group to a lone actor can cause chaos with a few keystrokes. Russia's campaign against Europe shows that this is no longer a fringe activity, but a core part of its foreign policy. We live in a world where the lines between war and peace are being deliberately blurred, where nations are locked in a state of constant, simmering confrontation. The shadow wars aren't history. They are an active and growing force, shaping our reality in ways we are only just beginning to understand. The most important battles of the 21st century might not be the ones we see, but the ones being fought in the shadows.